The bruises bloomed like poisonous flowers across her ribs, purple, yellow, green, a garden of pain she'd learned to hide beneath oversized sweaters and forced smiles. But when the Alpha King's silver eyes locked onto the dark fingerprints circling her wrist during the Lunar Ceremony, something ancient and terrible awakened in his gaze. By dawn, her boyfriend's scent had vanished from pack territory entirely, and whispers spread through the wolves like wildfire. The king had found his fated mate. And he'd already begun erasing her past. The scent of wolfsbane and roses drifted through the open windows of the Silvercrest packhouse, a combination that should have been impossible. One poison, one beauty. But somehow it worked here, in this place where contradictions thrived. Sera Blackwood pressed her fingers against the cool glass, watching the younger wolves train in the courtyard below, their bodies fluid as they shifted between human and wolf forms with an ease she'd never quite mastered. 23 years old, and she still felt like an outsider in her own skin. "You're doing it again." The voice behind her carried affection wrapped in exasperation. Mira, her closest friend since childhood, appeared in the doorway with 2 steaming mugs. Staring out windows like some tragic heroine, "You know Marcus hates when you look so melancholy." Sera accepted the tea, letting the warmth seep into her perpetually cold hands. "Marcus hates a lot of things about me lately. He's just stressed about the Lunar Ceremony." Mira settled onto the window seat, her auburn hair catching the afternoon light. Being chosen as the beta's second is a huge honor. He wants everything perfect. Perfect. The word tasted like ash. Sera tugged her sleeve down, covering the fingerprint bruises that had darkened overnight. Marcus's grip had been particularly tight last night when she'd suggested maybe, just maybe, they could postpone their mating ceremony. The Silvercrest pack expected them to formalize their bond during the upcoming Lunar Ceremony, a tradition as old as the pack itself, but something in Sera's chest pulled tight every time she thought about binding herself to Marcus forever. "So you're excited, aren't you?" Mira's eyes sparkled. "The Alpha King himself is attending this year, can you imagine? Theron Nightshade, the most powerful alpha in 5 territories, right here in our pack house." Sera had heard the whispers, of course. Everyone had. The Alpha King rarely left his fortress in the northern mountains, preferring to rule through his network of regional alphas. But this year marked the centennial Lunar Ceremony, and tradition demanded his presence. The pack had been preparing for weeks, the best hunters bringing in game, the gardens manicured to perfection, every surface polished until it gleamed. "I heard he's looking for his fated mate," Mira continued, her voice dropping to a conspiratorial whisper, "that he's visited every major pack in the territories searching. They say when an Alpha King finds his true mate, the bond is so powerful it can shake the foundations of the earth itself." "Fairy tales," Sera murmured, but something flickered in her chest, a strange hollow ache she couldn't name. "Sera." Marcus's voice cut through the afternoon quiet like a blade. She flinched, the tea sloshing dangerously close to the rim. He appeared in the doorway, his handsome face tight with irritation. Tall, broad-shouldered, with the classic features of the Silvercrest bloodline, Marcus Thornwood should have been everything she wanted. Her parents had been thrilled when he'd chosen her, a low-ranking wolf with a weak shift and no particular talents, to be his mate. "We need to go over the ceremony details again," he said, his tone leaving no room for argument. "You keep forgetting your lines." "I haven't forgotten. Don't contradict me." His hand closed around her upper arm, fingers digging into the tender flesh. Mira's eyes widened, but she said nothing, suddenly fascinated by her tea. "We'll discuss this in private." The walk to their shared quarters felt endless. Marcus's grip never loosened, his fingers pressing into bruises that hadn't yet healed. The Silvercrest packhouse was a sprawling estate of stone and timber, built generations ago when the pack had first claimed this territory. Sera had grown up in the smaller cottages on the outskirts, daughter of the pack's herbalist and a warrior who died defending their borders when she was 5. She barely remembered him, just flashes of a deep laugh and strong hands lifting her toward the moon. Marcus shoved her into their room and locked the door. The space that should have felt like a sanctuary had become a prison over the past 6 months. Ever since his promotion to Beta's second, something had shifted in him, or perhaps it had always been there, lurking beneath the charming surface, and she'd simply been too naive to see it. "You embarrass me," he said quietly, and somehow that was worse than shouting. Sitting there like a ghost, barely speaking. "The other males are starting to talk. wondering why I chose such a weak mate. I'm sorry. Sorry isn't good enough. He stepped closer and she smelled the whiskey on his breath. Day drinking, another new habit. The Alpha King will be evaluating every member of this pack. Our Alpha's standing depends on showing strength, unity. And you, his eyes raked over her, cold and assessing, you look like a strong wind could break you. Because you're breaking me, she thought, but didn't say. Speaking back only made it worse. The ceremony is in 3 days, Marcus continued, his voice taking on that reasonable tone that made her skin crawl. 3 days for you to pull yourself together, smile, laugh, show everyone that you're worthy of being my mate. Can you do that, Sera? Or do I need to find someone else? The threat hung in the air between them. In werewolf society, breaking a pre-ceremony bond was shameful but possible. If Marcus rejected her publicly, she'd be marked as unworthy, unwanted. No other wolf would touch her. She'd live out her days on the pack's edges, performing menial tasks, invisible. I can do it, she whispered. Good. His hand cupped her cheek, almost tender, and she fought not to recoil. I don't want to be harsh, love, but you have to understand we're building something here, a future. I'll be beta someday and you'll stand beside me, but only if you're strong enough. After he left, off to training, he said, though she suspected he was meeting Lissa, the pack's head warrior's daughter who watched him with hungry eyes. Sera sank onto the bed and finally let herself shake. Her wolf, that primal part of her that should have been fierce and protective, whimpered in the back of her mind. Weak. They were both so weak. She pulled up her sleeve, studying the bruises. Purple-black fingerprints circled her wrist like a grotesque bracelet. More decorated her ribs, her upper arms, the back of her thighs. A constellation of pain she'd become expert at hiding. 3 more days, she told herself, then the ceremony, and everything will be settled. But that hollow ache in her chest pulled tighter, and somewhere deep in her bones something whispered, run. The evening brought cooler air and the scent of pine from the surrounding forest. Sera volunteered for kitchen duty, grateful for the distraction of chopping vegetables and stirring pots. The pack's head cook, an elderly wolf named Agnes, ruled her domain with fierce efficiency, but had always been kind to Sera. You're too thin, Agnes observed, pressing a bowl of stew into her hands. Eat, you'll need your strength for the ceremony. Sera obeyed, though the food tasted like sawdust. Around her, the kitchen buzzed with excitement about the Alpha King's impending arrival. The younger wolves speculated wildly about what he'd look like, whether the rumors of his ruthlessness were true, if he'd really killed a rogue alpha with his bare hands. They say his eyes are silver, one of the kitchen girls breathed, like moonlight on water. And that he can sense lies, read your deepest secrets with just a glance. I heard he's cursed, another whispered, that he'll never find his fated mate because he angered the moon goddess herself. Agnes snorted. Foolish pups. The Alpha King is a wolf like any other, just more powerful. Now stop gossiping and finish those potatoes. But Sera felt it, that strange pull in her chest intensifying, as if something was coming, something that would shatter the careful walls she'd built around herself. She pressed her hand to her sternum, feeling her heartbeat quicken. 2 more days, she thought. Just hold on for 2 more days. She had no idea that by dawn, her entire world would be drenched in blood and silver moonlight, and the Alpha King would be standing over Marcus's broken body, his eyes burning with an ancient, terrible promise. Mine. The Lunar Ceremony began at twilight, when the full moon hung heavy and silver above the Silvercrest packhouse like a watchful eye. Sera stood in the preparation chamber, surrounded by the other unmated females who would be presented to the visiting dignitaries. Her dress, a flowing gown of midnight blue that Marcus had chosen, felt like a shroud against her skin. Hold still, Mira commanded, weaving silver ribbons through Sera's dark hair. You look beautiful. Marcus won't be able to take his eyes off you. That's what I'm afraid of, Sera thought, but she forced a smile. The bruises on her arms had been carefully covered with a paste Agnes had provided, herbs mixed with powder that masked the purple-black marks. Only the ones on her wrist remained visible, and she'd been instructed to keep her hands clasped, hidden in the folds of her dress. The sound of arriving wolves echoed through the packhouse, powerful alphas from neighboring territories, their betas and chosen warriors. The air thrummed with dominance, multiple sources of alpha power converging in one space. Sera's weak wolf whimpered, wanting to submit, to hide. I heard the Alpha King arrived an hour ago, one of the females whispered, adjusting her crimson dress. He went straight into closed council with Alpha Donovan. They say he's even more intimidating in person. Lisa claims she's going to catch his eye. Another giggled. She's been practicing her presentation walk for weeks. Sera tuned them out, focusing on breathing. In and out, steady. You can do this. The ceremony would follow ancient protocol. Unmated females presented first, then the mating bonds formalized, then the feast and celebration. She and Marcus would stand before the pack, before the Alpha King himself, and pledge their bond. Permanent, unbreakable. The hollow ache in her chest had become a stabbing pain. It's time, Mira announced, squeezing Sera's hand. Remember, head high, shoulders back. You're about to become the Beta's seconds mate. Act like it. The great hall had been transformed into something from ancient times. Torches lined the stone walls, their flames casting dancing shadows. The visiting alphas sat in positions of honor, their power rolling off them in waves. And at the center, on a throne-like chair that had been brought specifically for this occasion, sat the Alpha King. Sera's breath caught. Theron Nightshade was not handsome in any conventional sense. He was carved from darkness and moonlight, all sharp angles and predatory grace. Tall, easily 6.5 feet, with shoulders that spoke of brutal strength. His hair was black as a raven's wing, falling to his collar, and his face could have been sculpted from marble. High cheekbones, a strong jaw, lips that looked like they'd forgotten how to smile. But his eyes, his eyes were molten silver, burning with an intelligence and power that made every wolf in the room want to bare their throats in submission. He wore black, simple but clearly expensive, and he sat with the absolute stillness of an apex predator watching prey. Sera felt those silver eyes sweep across the assembled females, dismissive, bored, until they landed on her. The world stopped. Her heart stuttered, then raced. Something electric shot through her body, a recognition so profound it felt like her soul was screaming. Her wolf, weak and timid for 23 years, suddenly surged forward with a strength that nearly drove her to her knees. Mate. No, that was impossible. She was bonding with Marcus tonight. This was just nerves, just the overwhelming presence of the most powerful alpha in 5 territories. She tore her gaze away, hands trembling, and found Marcus in the crowd. He stood with the other high-ranking males, chest puffed with pride, not even looking at her. "Let the presentations begin," Alpha Donovan announced, his voice carrying through the hall. One by one, the unmated females walked the length of the hall, displaying themselves for potential mates. It was an archaic tradition, one that made Sera's skin crawl, but pack law was pack law. When her turn came, she moved on autopilot, keeping her eyes downcast, trying desperately to ignore the burning sensation of the Alpha King's gaze, tracking her every movement. She made it halfway down the hall when Marcus stepped forward. "Alpha King, honored guests," he said, his voice ringing with confidence. "I claim this female as my chosen mate. Tonight, we formalize our bond before the moon goddess and this assembled pack." Applause rippled through the crowd. Sera forced herself to smile, to look at Marcus with something resembling affection. He grinned at her, possessive, and reached for her hand, the one covered in bruises. His fingers closed around her wrist, squeezing, a reminder of his control. Sera gasped, pain shooting up her arm. The sound was soft, barely audible, but in that moment, the Alpha King's eyes narrowed. "Approach," Theron Nightshade commanded, his voice like gravel and silk, and every wolf in the room froze. The command wasn't directed at the pack, it was directed at her. Marcus's grip tightened. "Alpha King, we're honored by your attention, but I didn't speak to you." Those silver eyes never left Sera's face. "The female, approach me. Now." It wasn't a request. Sera's body moved before her mind could process, her wolf surging forward with desperate eagerness. She walked toward the throne, toward those burning silver eyes, and the closer she got, the more the world seemed to narrow to just the two of them. The air between them crackled with something ancient and inevitable. She stopped 3 feet away, trembling, and finally raised her eyes to meet his. The Alpha King leaned forward, his gaze dropping to her wrist, where Marcus's fingers had left fresh red marks over fading bruises. Something terrible and beautiful twisted across his face. When he spoke, his voice was soft, deadly. "Show me your arms." "Alpha King, I must protest." Marcus started forward, but Theron raised one hand, and the Beta's second froze mid-step, held by the sheer force of Alpha command. "Show me." Sera's hands shook, as she pushed up her sleeves. The paste Agnes had applied had smeared during Marcus's grip, revealing the full extent of the bruising. Purple, yellow, green, a timeline of violence written on her skin. The hall went deathly silent. Theron Nightshade rose from his throne, and the temperature in the room seemed to drop 10 degrees. He moved with liquid grace, closing the distance between them until Sera could feel the heat radiating from his body, could smell cedar and winter storms, and something wild that made her wolf keen with longing. His fingers, gentle, so impossibly gentle, traced the bruises on her wrist. Where he touched, warmth spread, soothing the ache. "Who did this?" he asked, though his silver eyes had already found Marcus in the crowd. It was an accident," Sera whispered, the lie automatic. "I'm clumsy. Don't." The word was soft but absolute. "Don't lie to protect him. I can smell his scent on these bruises. I can smell your fear." His hand moved to cup her face, tilting her chin up, and his eyes, gods, those eyes, held entire galaxies of rage and something else, something that looked almost like wonder. "Do you know what you are to me?" Sera couldn't speak, couldn't breathe. The bond between them was a living thing now, golden threads weaving through the air, visible only to them, pulling tighter with every heartbeat. "You're mine," Theron said, and the words resonated with alpha power, with ancient magic, with the absolute certainty of a fated bond recognized. "My mate, given to me by the moon goddess herself." The hall erupted, wolves shouting, some in celebration, others in shock. Marcus's face had gone purple with rage and humiliation. "This is outrageous," he snarled, breaking through the alpha command through sheer fury. "She's my chosen mate. We were bonding tonight. You can't just—" Theron turned, and the look he gave Marcus could have melted steel. "You put your hands on my fated mate. You marked her with violence and fear. You are lucky," he said, his voice dropping to a lethal whisper, "that we are in a sacred ceremony, or I would rip your throat out where you stand." "She's nothing," Marcus spat, all pretense of civility gone. "A weak wolf with a pathetic shift. I was doing her a favor, giving her status she didn't deserve, and this is how she repays me. By seducing the Alpha King with her victim act?" The slap echoed through the hall. Lysa, beautiful, fierce Lysa, had appeared beside Marcus, her face twisted with vicious satisfaction. "You stupid, ungrateful bitch," she hissed at Sera. "You think you've won? You think he'll actually want you once he realizes how broken you are? Marcus was mine first. You were just a placeholder, a weak little toy he used while waiting for me to come of age." The words hit like physical blows. Sera staggered back, the truth of her relationship crystallizing with brutal clarity. The late nights Marcus claimed were training, the whispered conversations that stopped when she entered rooms, the way Lysa had always watched her with barely concealed contempt. She'd never been chosen. She'd been convenient. Enough. Theron's voice carried alpha command that drove every wolf except Sera to their knees. He pulled her against his chest, one arm wrapping around her waist, protective and possessive. "Marcus Thornwood, you are banished from all territories under my rule. You have until dawn to leave Silvercrest lands. If I ever see you again, if I ever catch your scent near my mate, I will kill you slowly and make sure every wolf in 5 territories hears your screams." "You can't. I am the Alpha King. I can do whatever I want." Theron's eyes blazed silver fire. "And Lysa Blackthorn for striking my mate. You are stripped of your warrior status and demoted to Omega duties for 1 year. Consider it mercy." Alpha Donovan stepped forward, his face carefully neutral. "Alpha King, we are honored by your presence and your discovery. The female is yours by right of fated bond. We would never stand between mates chosen by the moon goddess herself." Theron nodded once, then looked down at Sera, his expression softening in a way that made her chest ache. "Can you walk?" He nodded, not trusting her voice. "Then come. We're leaving. But my things will be sent for. You're never spending another night under the same roof as that male." He guided her toward the exit, the crowd parting like water before them. At the doorway, he paused, looking back at the assembled pack. "The Lunar Ceremony will continue without us. Celebrate, feast. But remember this night. Remember that the moon goddess sees all, and she does not look kindly on those who abuse her gifts." The last thing Sera saw before they stepped into the moonlit night was Marcus's face, contorted with rage and humiliation, and Lysa's satisfied smirk. Then she was being lifted into strong arms, cradled against a chest that rumbled with barely contained fury, and the Alpha King was carrying her toward a future she couldn't begin to imagine. Behind them, in the Great Hall, whispers spread like wildfire. The Alpha King had found his fated mate, and by dawn, Marcus Thornwood would vanish from Pact territory entirely, though whether he left willingly or in pieces, no one would ever quite agree. The Alpha King's fortress rose from the northern mountains like a crown of stone and shadow, its towers piercing the clouds, its walls carved from black granite that seemed to absorb moonlight rather than reflect it. Sera had been silent during the entire journey, first in the armored vehicle that had been waiting outside the Silvercrest pack house, then during the helicopter ride that carried them over forests and rivers she'd never seen, finally landing on a platform that jutted from the mountainside like a defiant fist. Theron hadn't released her hand once. Now as they walked through corridors lit by torches that burned with silver flame, magic, her mind whispered, real magic, Sera felt the weight of her new reality settling over her like a physical thing. She was mated to the Alpha King. The most powerful wolf in 5 territories had claimed her as his fated mate in front of dozens of witnesses, and she still wore the bruises Marcus had given her. "You're shaking," Theron observed, his voice gentler than she'd heard it in the Great Hall. He'd shed the terrifying mantle of absolute authority, though power still radiated from him like heat from a forge. "Are you cold?" Sera's voice cracked. "I don't understand what's happening." He stopped walking, turning to face her fully. In the silver torchlight, his features were softer, more human. "You felt it, didn't you, in the hall, the bond?" She nodded, unable to deny it. That golden thread still connected them, pulsing with warmth and recognition, and something that felt dangerously like belonging. "Fated mates are rare," Theron said, his thumb tracing circles on the back of her hand. Soothing, unconscious. 1 in 10,000 wolves, maybe less. The moon goddess herself chooses the pairing, weaving souls together before birth. "I've searched for you for 10 years, Sera. Every pack, every territory, every gathering. And tonight I walked into that hall and saw you, and everything in me knew you're the other half of my soul." Tears burned behind Sera's eyes. "But I'm nobody. I'm weak. My wolf barely shifts. I have no status, no... You're mine." The words were fierce, absolute. "That makes you the most important wolf in 5 territories, and anyone who made you believe you were weak or worthless will answer to me." A door opened ahead of them, and a woman emerged, tall, elegant, with silver-streaked black hair and eyes that held centuries of wisdom. She wore robes of deep purple, and power clung to her like perfume, not wolf power, something older. "So," she said, her voice like honey and smoke, "this is the one who finally caught our king's heart." "Sera, this is Morgana," Theron introduced, respect clear in his tone. "She's been my advisor since I took the throne. Witch, healer, and the closest thing I have to family." Morgana's eyes, one brown, one pale blue, studied Sera with unnerving intensity. "Oh, child, you've been carrying so much pain." She moved closer, her fingers hovering over Sera's bruised wrist, without touching. "Physical wounds and soul-deep ones. Come, let me tend to you while our king handles the aftermath of tonight's events." "Aftermath?" Sera asked. Theron's jaw tightened. "Marcus Thornwood made a mistake thinking he could leave Pact territory alive. My trackers are already hunting him. You said he had until dawn." "I lied." Those silver eyes held no remorse. "He hurt you, repeatedly, systematically. He doesn't get mercy, Sera, he gets justice." Something in Sera's chest, something that had been cowering and small for so long, unfurled at those words. Not satisfaction exactly, but a fierce primal recognition that she was finally protected. Morgana led her to a chamber that took Sera's breath away. The room was circular, its walls lined with shelves holding bottles and herbs and crystals that glowed with inner light. A large pool dominated the center, steam rising from water that shimmered silver blue. The ceiling was glass, open to the night sky, and the full moon hung directly overhead like a blessing. "A healing bath," Morgana explained, already mixing ingredients into the water. Lavender, moonflower, something that smelled like starlight. "It will draw out the pain, help your body remember what it feels like to be whole. Undress, child. Don't be shy. I've seen every body the moon goddess ever created." Sera hesitated, then slowly removed the midnight blue dress. In the moonlight, the full extent of the damage was visible. Bruises covering her ribs, her upper arms, her thighs. Fingerprints and grip marks, and the evidence of months of carefully hidden violence. Morgana's expression darkened. That boy is lucky Theron's trackers will find him first. What I would do would be far worse. She helped Sera into the pool, and the moment the water touched her skin, warmth spread through her body like liquid sunlight. The pain began to fade, not disappearing, but becoming manageable, distant. "Why didn't you tell anyone?" Morgana asked, settling on the pool's edge. "Surely your pack would have intervened." "I tried." Sera's voice was small. "Once, I went to the pack healer, showed her the bruises. She said sometimes males get rough during courtship, that it was normal, that I should be grateful Marcus wanted me at all. The memory still stung. After that, I stopped trying." "Silvercrest has grown complacent," Morgana said, disgust clear in her tone. "Alpha Donovan is weak, more concerned with politics than his pack's well-being. But that will change now. Theron doesn't tolerate abuse in territories under his rule." Sera sank deeper into the water, letting it cover her shoulders. "I still don't understand why the moon goddess would choose me. I'm not strong enough to be a queen. I can barely shift. My wolf is so weak that transformations leave me exhausted for days." Morgana's mismatched eyes gleamed. "Tell me, child, when did your wolf first become weak?" I don't know. It's always been this way." "Always? Even as a pup?" Sera frowned, reaching back through memories. "No. When I was young, before my father died, I shifted easily. I loved running through the forests, hunting with the other pups. But after he died, after my mother withdrew into her grief, it became harder, like something was blocking me. Not something, someone." Morgana's voice was grim. "I'll need to examine you properly, but I suspect a suppression curse, subtle, long-term, designed to keep your true nature dormant." "My true nature? You're the Alpha King's fated mate, Sera. The moon goddess doesn't make mistakes. Whatever power sleeps in your bloodline, someone wanted it buried." Morgana stood, gathering towels. "But curses can be broken, and once yours is, I suspect you'll discover you're far stronger than anyone, including yourself, ever imagined." The water had turned cloudy, drawing out toxins and pain. Sera emerged feeling lighter, cleaner, as if she'd shed a layer of old skin. Morgana wrapped her in robes of soft silver fabric and led her to another chamber, this one clearly meant for sleeping. A massive bed dominated the space, covered in furs and pillows. Windows overlooked the mountain range, and a fireplace crackled with welcoming warmth. "Rest," Morgana commanded. "Tomorrow we begin your real healing, and your training." "Training? You're going to be a queen, child. That requires strength, knowledge, and power, all of which you possess. You just need to remember how to access them." She paused at the door. "Theron will want to see you, to ensure you're settled. Don't fear him. That male has waited his entire life for you. He'll be patient, gentle, everything your previous male wasn't." After Morgana left, Sera stood at the window, watching the moon's path across the sky. Somewhere out there, Marcus was running, hunted. Lissa was scrubbing floors, her warrior status stripped. And Sera was here, in a fortress carved from mountains claimed by a king who looked at her like she was something precious. The door opened softly. Theron entered, and the bond between them flared to life, golden and warm. He'd changed into simple clothes, dark pants and a loose shirt that revealed the column of his throat, the edge of tattoos that disappeared beneath fabric. "How are you feeling?" he asked, keeping his distance, giving her space. "Like I'm dreaming," Sera admitted. "Like I'll wake up back in that room with Marcus and none of this will be real." Theron crossed to her slowly, telegraphing every movement. When he reached her, he cupped her face with both hands, his touch reverent. "This is real. You're here. You're safe. And I swear on my life, on my throne, on everything I am, no one will ever hurt you again. You barely know me. I know you're brave. You survived months of abuse and never broke. I know you're kind. I saw how you helped in the kitchens, how the elderly cook looked at you with affection. I know you're my mate, and that's enough." His thumb brushed her cheekbone. "But I want to know everything else. Your favorite color, what makes you laugh, what you dream about. We have time, Sera, forever if the moon goddess wills it. I don't know how to be a queen. Then I'll teach you. Morgana will teach you. You'll learn." He smiled, and it transformed his face from intimidating to breathtaking. "Besides, being queen isn't about status or power. It's about standing beside me, helping me rule with wisdom and compassion, and something tells me you have both in abundance." Sera felt tears slip down her cheeks, not from pain this time, but from the overwhelming relief of being seen, truly seen, for the first time in years. "May I hold you?" Theron asked softly. "Just hold you. Nothing more. I need to feel that you're real." She nodded, and he pulled her into his arms, careful of her healing bruises. His heartbeat was steady against her ear, and the bond between them hummed with contentment. For the first time in months, maybe years, Sera felt safe. "My trackers found him," Theron murmured against her hair. "Marcus. He was heading for rogue territory, probably hoping to disappear. They're bringing him back to face-pack justice. Will you kill him? You want me to?" Sera thought about it, really thought. "I want him to face consequences. I want everyone to know what he did, but I don't want his death on my conscience. Then he'll stand trial before the Council of Alphas. He'll be stripped of his rank, his wolf-bound, and exiled to the wastelands where no pack will take him in. A living death, in many ways worse than execution." Theron's arms tightened slightly. "Is that acceptable?" Yes, and it was. Marcus would lose everything he'd valued. Status, power, respect. He'd live knowing he'd lost his chance at greatness, because he couldn't control his cruelty. They stood like that for long minutes, two souls recognizing each other across the distance of lifetimes. Finally, Theron pressed a kiss to her forehead, chaste, gentle, and stepped back. "Sleep, my mate. Tomorrow begins your new life." After he left, Sera climbed into the massive bed and stared at the moon through the window. Somewhere in her chest, her wolf stirred, not weak and cowering, but curious, hopeful. And for the first time since her father's death, Sera let herself believe that maybe, just maybe, he deserved something good. 3 weeks in the northern mountains had transformed Sera in ways she was only beginning to understand. Each morning, Morgana led her through exercises designed to break the suppression curse. Meditation under the full moon's light, drinking teas brewed from ancient herbs, speaking incantations in a language that felt familiar on her tongue, despite never having learned it. And slowly, painfully, gloriously, her wolf was waking up. "Again," Morgana commanded, her voice echoing across the training courtyard. "Reach for your wolf. Don't ask permission. Demand she rise." Sera closed her eyes, feeling the familiar resistance, the wall that had existed between her human consciousness and her wolf for so long. But now, after weeks of Morgana's work, she could feel cracks in that wall. She pushed, and her wolf pushed back, not in rejection, but in eager cooperation. The shift came faster than ever before, bones realigning, muscles reforming, fur sprouting across her skin. The pain was there, but manageable, almost welcome. And when she opened her eyes, the world had exploded into sharper focus. Scents layered and complex, sounds crystal clear, colors more vivid than she'd ever experienced. "Beautiful," Theron's voice came from the courtyard's edge, and Sera's wolf immediately oriented toward him, tail wagging. He'd been watching her training sessions when his duties allowed, always present but never interfering, letting her find her own strength. Sera's wolf was smaller than most, sleek and dark-furred with unusual silver markings along her spine that Morgana had declared significant. Not weak, she was realizing, but built for speed and stealth rather than brute force. "The curse is almost broken," Morgana announced, satisfaction clear in her tone. "Another week, maybe 2, and you'll have full access to your abilities. And then, child, we'll discover what you truly are." "What do you mean?" Sera asked after shifting back, accepting the robe Theron offered. "Those silver markings aren't common. They indicate ancient bloodline, possibly royal heritage from one of the old packs, the ones that existed before the territories were divided." Morgana's mismatched eyes gleamed. "Your father, what pack was he from?" "I don't know. He never spoke of his past, and after he died, my mother refused to discuss him. Then we'll research. But first," Morgana gestured toward the fortress's main entrance where a commotion was building. "It seems we have visitors." The Council of Alphas had convened for Marcus's trial, and with them came their entourages, betas, warriors, advisors. The fortress filled with powerful wolves, all curious about the Alpha King's mysterious mate, who'd appeared from nowhere and captured his heart. Sera felt their stares like physical touches as she walked through the corridors beside Theron. She wore a gown Morgana had commissioned, deep emerald that brought out the green in her hazel eyes, with long sleeves that covered the last fading bruises. Her hair had been arranged in an intricate braid, woven with silver thread, and around her neck hung a pendant bearing Theron's mark, a wolf's head crowned with stars. "You're stunning," Theron murmured, his hand warm at the small of her back. "And you don't need to be nervous. You're my mate, my queen. No one here outranks you except me. But Sera's stomach churned as they entered the great hall. Not the one at Silvercrest, but the fortress's own, 3 times larger and infinitely more intimidating. The council sat in a semicircle, 7 alphas representing the 7 territories, each radiating power and authority. And in the center, bound in silver chains that suppressed his wolf, knelt Marcus. He looked terrible, gaunt, hollow-eyed, his clothes torn and dirty. When he saw Sera, something vicious twisted across his face. "This is a farce," he spat. "She seduced the Alpha King, played the victim, and now you're all dancing to her tune. I did nothing wrong. She was mine to discipline as I saw fit." The hall erupted. Several alphas snarled, their wolves rising to the surface at the implication that abuse was acceptable. Theron's hand tightened on Sera's back, his control the only thing keeping him from ripping Marcus apart. "Silence," commanded Alpha Cassius of the Eastern Territory, the eldest of the council. His hair was silver, his face lined with age, but his eyes were sharp as blades. "Marcus Thornwood, you stand accused of systematic abuse of your chosen mate, of bringing shame to your pack, and of disrespecting the Alpha King's fated mate. How do you plead?" "Not guilty, she's lying—" "We have evidence," Morgana interrupted, stepping forward with a leather folder. "Medical documentation of injuries spanning 6 months, testimony from pack members who witnessed his controlling behavior. And most damning—" She opened the folder, revealing photographs that made Sera's stomach turn, her own body covered in bruises, taken by Morgana during that first healing bath. The physical proof of his cruelty. Marcus's face went white, then purple with rage. "You can't do this, I have rights. I'm Beta's second of Silvercrest, "You're nothing," Theron said quietly, and the temperature in the room dropped. "You're a coward who hurt someone weaker because it made you feel powerful, and now you'll face the consequences." The trial lasted 3 hours. Witness after witness came forward, pack members who'd seen Marcus's temper, who'd heard Sera's muffled cries, who'd suspected but said nothing out of fear or indifference. Agnes, the cook, testified with tears streaming down her face about the times Sera had come to the kitchens with fresh bruises, claiming clumsiness. And then Lisa was brought forward. She looked different, humbled, her warrior's confidence stripped away by weeks of Omega duties. But when she saw Sera sitting beside the Alpha King, wearing a queen's finery, something ugly flickered in her eyes. "Tell the council what you told me," Alpha Donovan commanded. He looked diminished, ashamed that this had happened under his leadership. Lisa's testimony was damning. She confirmed that she and Marcus had been involved for years, that Sera had been a convenient placeholder, someone to use while Lisa came of age. She described how Marcus had laughed about Sera's weakness, how he'd enjoyed having power over someone who couldn't fight back. "But she deserved it," Lisa added, her voice turning vicious. "Walking around like a ghost, embarrassing him with her pathetic wolf. She should have been grateful he chose her at all." "Enough," Alpha Cassius said wearily. "The council has heard sufficient evidence. Marcus Thornwood, we find you guilty of all charges. Your sentence, your wolf will be bound, severing your connection to your primal nature. You will be exiled to the barren wastes, where no pack may offer you sanctuary. You will live as a human, powerless for the remainder of your days." Marcus screamed, thrashing against his chains. "No, you can't. My wolf is everything. Please, I'll do anything. "You should have thought of that before you raised your hand to my mate," Theron said coldly. The binding ritual was brutal to witness. A witch, not Morgana, but another, older and grimmer, chanted in the old language while pressing a brand to Marcus's chest. His screams echoed through the hall as the magical connection to his wolf was severed, leaving him hollow, human, broken. When it was done, guards dragged him away. He'd be taken to the edge of the wastes and left there with nothing but the clothes on his back. Sera watched him go and felt nothing. No satisfaction, no guilt, just a profound sense of closure. "And you," Alpha Cassius turned to Lisa, "your sentence stands. 1 year of Omega duties. But know this, if you ever speak ill of the Alpha King's mate again, if you ever show her anything but respect, you will join Marcus in the wastes. Am I clear?" Lisa bowed her head, defeated. "Yes, Alpha." After the trial, a feast was held. Tradition demanded celebration after justice was served. Sera found herself seated at the high table, Theron on one side, Morgana on the other, with the council alphas arranged around them. The food was exquisite, the wine flowed freely, and gradually Sera felt herself relaxing. "You handled that with remarkable grace," Alpha Cassius observed, raising his glass to her. "Many would have demanded blood. You chose justice instead. That speaks well of your character." "I just wanted it to be over," Sera admitted, "and now it is. You can move forward." He smiled, the expression softening his stern features. "The Alpha King chose well. You'll make a fine queen." As the evening progressed, wolves approached to offer congratulations, to introduce themselves, to curry favor with the new queen. Sera smiled and nodded and tried to remember names and territories, feeling overwhelmed but also proud. She was doing this. She was standing beside Theron, representing his throne, and she wasn't collapsing under the weight. "Dance with me," Theron murmured, offering his hand as music began. Traditional wolf songs played on drums and strings. Sera let him lead her to the floor. She'd never been a graceful dancer, but in Theron's arms she didn't need to be. He guided her effortlessly, his body warm and solid against hers, and the bond between them hummed with contentment. "I'm proud of you," he said softly, his breath warm against her ear. "I know today was difficult. It was necessary." Sera looked up at him, this powerful male who'd upended her entire world. "Thank you for believing me, for protecting me, for everything. You never need to thank me for that. You're my mate, Sera, my queen, protecting you, cherishing you. It's not a duty, it's a privilege." His hand tightened on her waist. "And I need you to know, I'm falling in love with you. Not just because of the bond, but because of who you are. Your strength, your kindness, your resilience, you're extraordinary." Tears pricked Sera's eyes. "I'm falling in love with you too. It terrifies me, but it's true. Don't be terrified, just trust it. Trust us." They danced until the moon reached its zenith, until the other wolves began to drift away, until it was just the two of them swaying in the moonlight. And when Theron finally led her back to her chambers, still separate from his, giving her space and time, he kissed her for the first time. It was gentle, reverent, nothing like Marcus's demanding, possessive kisses. Theron kissed her like she was precious, like he had all the time in the world, like he wanted to memorize the taste of her, and when he pulled back, his silver eyes were molten with emotion. "Sleep well, my queen. Tomorrow we begin planning your coronation." Sera watched him leave, her fingers pressed to her lips, her heart full to bursting. She'd survived the trial, faced her abuser, and emerged stronger. She was the Alpha King's mate, soon to be queen of 5 territories, and for the first time in her life, she felt like she deserved it. The coronation preparations consumed the fortress for weeks. Seamstresses arrived from every territory, bearing fabrics that shimmered like starlight and moonbeams. Diplomats came to teach Sera the intricacies of pack politics, which alphas held grudges against whom, which territories had ancient alliances, how to navigate the treacherous waters of supernatural governance. But the most significant change happened in Morgana's tower. On a night when the moon was dark and the stars burned cold and bright. "The curse is ready to break," Morgana announced, arranging crystals in a circle around Sera. "But I must warn you, when it does, the truth of your heritage will be revealed, and it may be overwhelming." "I'm ready," Sera said, though her heart hammered against her ribs. Theron stood at the edge of the circle, his presence a comfort and an anchor. Morgana began to chant, her voice rising and falling in the old language. The crystals glowed, then blazed with light. Sera felt something inside her chest crack, not painfully, but like ice breaking in spring, like a door long locked finally swinging open. Power flooded through her. It was nothing like she'd expected, not a trickle or a gradual awakening, but a tsunami of strength that made her gasp and arch off the floor. Her wolf surged forward, not weak and timid, but fierce and wild and ancient. Images flashed through her mind, memories that weren't hers, or maybe were from lifetimes ago. A white wolf running through silver forests, a crown of stars, a bloodline that stretched back to the first wolves, the ones who'd walked beside the moon goddess herself. When the light faded, Sera collapsed, panting. Theron was beside her instantly, gathering her into his arms. What was that?" she gasped. Morgana's face was pale, awed. "Your Silver Moon bloodline, the royal line everyone thought died out 3 centuries ago." She knelt beside them, her mismatched eyes wide. "Your father must have been the last heir hiding in obscurity. And you, child, you're not just the Alpha King's mate. You're a queen by blood, right?" Theron's arms tightened around her. The Silver Moon line were the most powerful wolves in history. They could command lesser wolves with a thought, heal with their touch, see through lies. If this is true, it's true, Morgana interrupted. Look at her markings. Sera glanced down at her arms. The silver markings that had appeared on her wolf form were now visible on her human skin, delicate, intricate patterns that glowed faintly in the darkness, like moonlight trapped beneath her flesh. This changes everything, Theron said quietly. The Council will need to know, the Pax will need to know. Sera's voice was stronger than she'd ever heard it. She pulled back, meeting Theron's silver eyes. Not yet. I need time to understand what this means, to learn how to control this power. If we announce it now, every wolf in 5 territories will either worship me or try to use me. I need to be ready. Theron studied her face, then nodded slowly. You're right. We'll keep this between us. You, me, and Morgana. You'll train in secret, master your abilities. And when you're ready, when you're confident in your power, then we'll reveal the truth. Over the following weeks, Sera's training intensified. Morgana taught her to channel her silver moon abilities, how to project her will, how to sense deception, how to heal minor wounds with focused intention. Theron trained with her in combat, teaching her to fight in both human and wolf form, never holding back, treating her like the warrior she was becoming. And slowly, the frightened girl who'd cowered under Marcus's fists transformed into something magnificent. The night before her coronation, Sera stood on the fortress's highest balcony, watching the moon rise over the mountains. She wore a simple dress, her silver markings hidden beneath long sleeves, but she could feel the power humming beneath her skin, ready to be called upon. Nervous? Theron's voice came from behind her, and she smiled without turning. Terrified, excited, both. She felt him approach, his warmth enveloping her as he wrapped his arms around her waist. A year ago I was nobody, a weak wolf in a pack that barely noticed me, trapped with a male who saw me as property. And now you're about to become Queen of 5 territories, mate to the Alpha King, and secretly heir to the most powerful bloodline in wolf history. His lips brushed her temple. You've earned every bit of it, Sera. Your strength, your courage, your compassion. That's what makes you worthy, not your bloodline. He turned in his arms, reaching up to cup his face. I love you. I don't think I've said it plainly enough, but I do, completely, terrifyingly. I love you too. He kissed her, deep and claiming, and the bond between them blazed gold and silver, visible even to human eyes. Tomorrow, you'll be my queen in title, but you've been my queen in truth since the moment I saw you. The coronation took place at dawn, as tradition demanded. The great hall was packed with wolves from every territory, alphas and their courts, warriors and healers, merchants and scholars. Everyone who mattered in supernatural society had come to witness the Alpha King's mate claim her throne. Sera walked down the aisle alone as protocol required. She wore a gown of white and silver that seemed to capture moonlight, her dark hair loose and flowing, the crown of stars waiting at the altar. With each step, she felt her power growing, her confidence solidifying. She was no longer the frightened girl from Silvercrest. She was Sera Nightshade, mate to the Alpha King, and she would rule with strength and compassion. Theron waited at the altar, magnificent in black and silver, his eyes burning with pride and love. Beside him stood Morgana, holding the crown, an ancient piece forged from starlight and wolf magic, worn by queens for millennia. Sera Blackwood, Alpha Cassius intoned, his voice carrying through the hall. You stand before the council and the assembled Pax to claim your place as queen of the 5 territories. Do you swear to rule with wisdom and justice, to protect the weak and guide the strong, to stand beside your mate as equal partner in all things? I swear it, Sera said, her voice clear and unwavering. Do you accept the responsibility of your crown, the weight of your throne, the trust of your people? I accept it. Then, by the power vested in me by the Council of Alphas, by the blessing of the Moon Goddess herself, I crown you. Morgana placed the crown on Sera's head, and the moment it touched her, power exploded through the hall. The silver markings on Sera's skin blazed to life, visible through her gown and her eyes. Her eyes turned pure silver, matching Theron's. The hall gasped. Wolves dropped to their knees, overwhelmed by the sudden surge of ancient power. Silvermoon, someone whispered, and the word spread like wildfire. Alpha Cassius stared, shock clear on his weathered face. The lost bloodline. It's true. Sera stood tall, letting her power wash over the assembled wolves, not threatening but undeniable. I am Sera Nightshade, Queen of the Five Territories, mate to Theron, and heir to the Silver Moon line. I claim my throne not through bloodline alone, but through strength earned and trials survived. I will rule with justice and compassion. I will protect those who cannot protect themselves, and I will never forget what it means to be powerless, because I have lived it." The hall erupted in cheers. Wolves howled their approval, the sound shaking the fortress walls. Theron pulled her into his arms, kissing her before the entire assembly, claiming her as his in front of everyone who mattered. "My queen," he murmured against her lips. "My magnificent, powerful queen." The feast that followed was legendary. Wolves celebrated until dawn, drinking and dancing and swearing fealty to their new queen. Sera moved through the crowd, accepting congratulations. Speaking with alphas and their courts, already beginning the work of ruling, she found Alpha Donovan in a corner, looking diminished and ashamed. When he saw her, he dropped to one knee. "My queen, I failed you. I failed to protect you when you were in my pack, failed to see what was happening under my own roof. I offer my deepest apologies and my resignation, if you wish it." Sera studied him. This male who'd been too weak to stand up to Marcus, too concerned with politics to notice suffering. She could destroy him with a word, strip him of his territory, make him pay for his negligence. Instead, she offered her hand. "Rise, Alpha Donovan. You failed me, yes. But you also allowed me to leave without protest, supported the trial, and have shown genuine remorse. I don't want your resignation. I want your promise that you'll be better, that you'll protect the vulnerable in your pack, that you'll never again turn a blind eye to abuse." He took her hand, tears in his eyes. "You have my word, my queen, and my eternal gratitude for your mercy." As the celebration continued, Sera found herself on the balcony again, needing a moment of quiet. Morgana joined her, offering a glass of wine. "You handled that beautifully," the witch said, "showing strength and mercy in equal measure. That's what makes a true queen." "I keep thinking about who I was a year ago," Sera admitted. "That frightened girl who thought she deserved the abuse, who believed she was worthless. If I could go back and tell her what was coming, she wouldn't believe you. But she survived, and that survival made you who you are now." Morgana clinked her glass against Sera's. "To survival, to transformation, to becoming who we were always meant to be." Inside, Theron was watching her through the windows, his expression soft with love. Sera smiled at him, this male who'd saved her, and then taught her to save herself, who'd given her a throne but made sure she earned it. Tomorrow, they would begin the real work of ruling, addressing injustices, strengthening alliances, building a better world for all wolves. But tonight she would celebrate. She would dance with her mate, accept the love of her people, and embrace the truth of who she'd become. Sera Nightshade, Queen, Silver Moon Heir, Survivor, and finally, gloriously, free. 6 months had transformed the 5 territories in ways no one could have predicted. Queen Sera Nightshade, the name still sent a thrill through her when she heard it, stood in the council chamber, reviewing reports from across the realm with a confidence that would have seemed impossible a year ago. "The new protection laws are working," Alpha Cassius reported, satisfaction clear in his weathered features. "Reports of domestic abuse have dropped by 60%, and more importantly, victims are coming forward. They know they'll be believed now." Sera nodded, marking notes on the parchment before her. The Protection Accords had been her first major initiative as queen, comprehensive laws that made abuse of any kind grounds for immediate investigation, with harsh penalties for offenders and support systems for victims. Every pack now had trained advocates, safe houses, and a direct line to the throne for those who needed help. "What about the Eastern Territory situation?" she asked, turning to Alpha Meredith, a sharp-eyed female who'd taken over when the previous Alpha retired. "The rogue pack has been contained. They're no longer raiding border settlements." Meredith's expression was grim. "But their leader, Cade Blackthorn, is requesting an audience. He claims he has information about the Silver Moon bloodline that you need to hear." Sera felt Theron tense beside her. Cade Blackthorn was Lissa's older brother, exiled years ago for challenging his alpha. He'd built a rogue pack in the wastelands, wolves who'd been cast out or had chosen to leave traditional pack structure. Dangerous, unpredictable, but not without honor. "Grant him safe passage," Sera decided. "But he comes alone, and he's searched for weapons before entering the fortress." "My queen," Alpha Cassius began, concern evident. "I can handle one rogue alpha," Sera said calmly, and let just a fraction of her Silver Moon power ripple through the room. The alphas straightened, their wolves recognizing the ancient authority in her blood. Besides, if he truly has information about my heritage, I need to hear it. After the council session, Sera found Morgana in her tower, surrounded by ancient texts and scrolls that smelled of dust and magic. "I've been researching your father's line," the witch said without preamble, "and I found something troubling. The Silver Moon bloodline didn't just die out, it was systematically hunted. 3 centuries ago, a coalition of lesser alphas, threatened by Silver Moon power, orchestrated a purge. They killed every known heir, burned the records, tried to erase the bloodline from history." Sera's blood ran cold. "But my father survived. Your father was hidden as an infant, raised by humans, never told what he was. He only discovered his wolf nature in his 20s, and by then he had no knowledge of his heritage. He met your mother, had you, and lived quietly, probably hoping to keep you safe by keeping you ignorant." Morgana's mismatched eyes were grave. "But someone knew. Someone cursed you, suppressed your power, tried to ensure the Silver Moon line stayed buried. Who? That's what we need to discover, because whoever it was, they're still out there. And now that you've revealed yourself, they may try again." The threat hung in the air between them, but Sera refused to let fear control her. She'd spent too long being afraid, being small. Never again. Cade Blackthorn arrived 3 days later, and Sera received him in the throne room with Theron at her side. The rogue alpha was younger than she'd expected, perhaps 30, with wild dark hair, scars crossing his face, and eyes that held both intelligence and barely contained violence. He moved like a predator, all coiled strength and dangerous grace. "Your Majesties," he said, bowing with just enough respect to avoid insult, but not enough to show true deference. "Thank you for seeing me." "You have information about the Silver Moon bloodline," Sera said directly. "Speak." Cade's eyes locked onto hers, and she saw recognition there, and something else. "Regret? My father was part of the coalition that tried to erase your line. He's dead now, killed in a territorial dispute 5 years ago, but before he died he confessed to me, told me what they'd done, the innocents they'd murdered, all because they feared Silver Moon power would diminish their own authority." The throne room went deathly silent. Theron's hand found Sera's, squeezing gently. "He also told me," Cade continued, his voice rough, "that one of the coalition members survived, Alpha Cornelius of the Western Territory. He's old now, in his 80s, but he's still alive, and he's the one who placed the suppression curse on you when you were a child." Sera's world tilted. Alpha Cornelius. She'd met him at her coronation, a frail old wolf who'd congratulated her with a smile that hadn't reached his eyes. "Why are you telling me this?" she asked. "Because what they did was wrong. Because I'm tired of carrying my father's sins." Cade's jaw tightened. "And because my sister Lissa is serving out her sentence in your territory. I want to know she's being treated fairly." "She is," Sera said quietly. "Her year is almost complete. She's learned humility, and she'll be restored to her rank soon. I don't believe in endless punishment, Cade. I believe in redemption." Something shifted in the rogue alpha's expression. Surprise, perhaps, or respect. "Then you're a better queen than any of us deserve." He bowed again, deeper this time. "If you need warriors, if you need allies when you confront Cornelius, my pack stands ready. We may be rogues, but we honor our debts." After Cade left, Sera turned to Theron. "We need to move carefully. Cornelius is old, but he's cunning, and if we accuse him without proof—" "We have proof," Morgana announced, sweeping into the throne room with a leather-bound journal. "I've been investigating, and I found this hidden in the fortress archives. Cornelius's own records detailing the purge, the curse, everything. He kept it as insurance, probably planning to use it as leverage if anyone ever discovered the truth." Sera took the journal, her hands trembling with rage. Page after page documented the systematic murder of her ancestors, children killed in their beds, entire families burned alive, and finally, the entry about her father, tracked down, his infant daughter identified, the curse placed to ensure she'd never access her power. "He stole my childhood," Sera whispered. "He made me weak, made me vulnerable to Marcus, all because he was afraid of what I might become." "Then let's show him exactly what you've become," Theron said, his voice deadly soft. "Let's show all of them." The confrontation happened at the next council gathering, with all 7 territorial alphas present. Sera waited until the formal business concluded, then stood, her Silver Moon markings beginning to glow. "Before we adjourn, I have a matter to address. Alpha Cornelius, would you approach the throne?" The old wolf shuffled forward, leaning heavily on his cane, his rheumy eyes confused. "My queen, how may I serve?" "By telling the truth." Sera descended from her throne, the journal in her hands. 3 centuries ago, a coalition of alphas decided that the Silver Moon bloodline was too powerful, too threatening to their own authority, so they committed genocide. They murdered every man, woman, and child who carried Silver Moon blood, everyone except my father, who escaped as an infant. The council chamber erupted in shocked murmurs. Cornelius's face went pale. "And 23 years ago," Sera continued, her voice ringing with power, "when my father was discovered living quietly in Silvercrest territory, when I was born and my heritage became apparent, you placed a curse on me. A suppression curse designed to keep my power dormant, to ensure the Silver Moon line stayed buried." That's absurd," Cornelia stammered. "I would never—" "Don't lie to me." Sera's eyes blazed silver, and her Silver Moon power flooded the room. Every wolf felt it, the weight of ancient authority, the ability to sense deception. "I can taste your lies like poison on my tongue. Confess, Cornelius. Confess what you did." The old alpha crumpled, his cane clattering to the floor. "I was protecting the balance of power. Silver Moon wolves were too strong. They could command any lesser wolf with a thought. If you'd come into your power, you could have enslaved us all. So instead, you enslaved me," Sera said quietly. "You made me weak, vulnerable, easy prey for males like Marcus Thornwood. You stole my childhood, my confidence, my strength. You nearly destroyed me." "What is the council's judgment?" Theron asked, his voice cold as winter. Alpha Cassius stood, his expression grave. "Alpha Cornelius, for the crime of genocide against the Silver Moon bloodline, for the crime of cursing our queen, for the crime of conspiracy and deception spanning centuries, we strip you of your title, your territory, and your wolf. You will be bound and exiled, and your name will be struck from the records of honor." Cornelius screamed as the binding ritual began, but Sera felt no satisfaction. Only a profound sadness for all the lives destroyed by fear and jealousy. After the trial, after Cornelius had been dragged away to face his exile, Sera stood on her favorite balcony, watching the sun set over the mountains. Theron joined her, wrapping his arms around her waist, his chin resting on her shoulder. "It's done," he murmured. "Justice served. Your family avenged." "I keep thinking about all the what-ifs," Sera admitted. "What if my father had known his heritage? What if I'd grown up with my power? What if Marcus had never— Then you wouldn't be who you are now." Theron turned her to face him, his silver eyes soft with love. "You're strong because you survived weakness. You're compassionate because you know what it means to suffer. You're a magnificent queen because you earned it through pain and perseverance. I wouldn't change a single thing about your journey, because it brought you to me." Sera kissed him, pouring all her love and gratitude into the gesture. "What about Marcus?" she asked when they parted. "Have there been any reports?" "He's still alive, barely, living in the wastes, human and powerless. Some of my scouts report seeing him occasionally, broken, half-mad, surviving on scraps." Theron's expression was grim. "Exactly what he deserves. And Lissa completed her sentence last week. She's requested permission to join her brother's rogue pack. I granted it. She's learned her lesson, and she'll never threaten you again." Sera nodded, satisfied. She'd built a kingdom based on justice and redemption, not endless vengeance. It was enough. The months that followed were filled with purpose and joy. Sera traveled to every territory, meeting with packs, listening to concerns, implementing reforms. She opened schools for young wolves, teaching them to control their shifts and understand their heritage. She established trade agreements that benefited all territories equally. She became the queen her people needed, strong but compassionate, powerful but approachable. And at night, she returned to Theron's arms, to the mate who'd saved her, and then taught her to save herself. One evening, as they lay tangled together in their shared bed, finally shared, after months of courtship and patience, Sera felt a new sensation, a flutter in her belly, a spark of life that made her gasp. "What is it?" Theron asked immediately, concern flooding his features. "I think—" Sera pressed her hand to her stomach, tears springing to her eyes. "I think I'm pregnant." Theron's face transformed with joy so pure it took her breath away. He placed his hand over hers, and through their bond they both felt it. A tiny heartbeat, a new life, the future of both their bloodlines combined. "A child," he whispered, awed. "Our child." Silver Moon and Nightshade blood united. "The most powerful wolf in history," Morgana said from the doorway, and they both jumped. The witch smiled, unrepentant. "I felt the shift in magical energy. Congratulations, Your Majesties. You're going to be parents." As Sera drifted to sleep that night, surrounded by love and safety and purpose, she thought about the girl she'd been, frightened, broken, convinced she was worthless. That girl would never have believed this future was possible, but she'd survived, she'd transformed, she'd flourished where she'd been planted, even in the darkest soil, and now she was going to raise a child who would never doubt their worth, never question their power, never accept abuse as normal. The cycle was broken, the future was bright, and Sera Nightshade, Queen of the 5 Territories, heir to the Silver Moon bloodline, mate to the Alpha King, was finally, gloriously, completely free. Thank you for joining Sera on her journey from victim to queen, from broken to whole, from powerless to unstoppable. If you enjoyed this tale of transformation, redemption, and the power of finding your true strength, please subscribe for more stories of supernatural romance and epic fantasy. Leave a comment telling us where you're listening from, and share this story with someone who needs to hear that they're stronger than they know. Remember, you are not defined by what was done to you, but by how you rise from the ashes. Until next time, may the Moon Goddess guide your path.